support the growth of digital tech startup scale-ups and the tech sector as a whole across the Nordics and Baltics. Nordic Baltic sibling of London Tech Advocates, Tech London Advocates, other way around, engine behind the London's Tech Hub and the Nordic arm of Global Tech Advocates, which is global tech startup organization across 20 hubs and about 20,000 people. That's us. We have offices in Stockholm, in Finland, and in Copenhagen, and work across the region, and with all these amazing women that you can see right here in front of us, and the men. Thank you, Enrique.
Thanks. Do you have any call to action that the people would like to know, the audience?
Yes, here's one. As some of you know, since this is a women focused course, some of you know we run Europe's only growth program for female founders in tech, international mentoring and growth program. And so the one message to everyone out there in that vein is you can do it. It's not about being male or female. You can do it. And look at all these incredible women that we have right here, investors and founders. They have all done it and are doing it. And so what we just need is many more role models, just like all of these amazing women. So that's a message. You can do it, and we will help you.
Thanks, Janet. Next, we have Jone from Startup WiseGuys.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I think just to follow up on the super nice intro by Jeanette. For those who don't know, Startup WiseGuys is one of the most active B2B accelerators in Europe, and that's, I think, especially great for us to have this position in the market, because we are originating actually from a very small country of Estonia and started 9 years ago. But to this date, we already have invested in over 230 startups, so that's a pretty big portfolio. And even though since we started in 2012, I think the trend with the female founders is becoming better and better. But at least one thing for sure that we know is 70% of the team in Startup WiseGuys is female. So, I'm one of them. And for sure, I just can add to what Jeanette said. There is no he, she, in this situation. I think it's just kind of the perseverance and the work that we do that makes us stand out here. So very glad to be here on the panel.
Thanks, Jone. And do you have anything the audience would like to know?
I think something that, I just said, but definitely less kind of doubting. I think just putting all the doubts and prejudice behind, it's what actually can make you do it. I think we have too many prejudice already put in our heads that we think I cannot do it just because. So just take those out. And that's...
Thanks. All right, you gave me a hard act to follow based on your two presentations. So, okay, last but not least, it's me, Enrique, from the Nordic Startup School. And we operate mainly in the Nordics, most focused in Finland at the moment, but hoping to go to Estonia and the other countries. We normally take businesses and we like to go with them further along the road with them, take them from early stage all the way to Series A if possible. And we're very founder focused and mentor focused, and we love to bring good people into the team to make it as good as possible. Again, I don't have anything as that fancy to say, so I guess in this case, let's just continue. If you have any questions from the audience, please feel free to do so. You can leave a question in the Q&A section, and then we will answer it when the time comes. But now it's time to start the panel. And first of all, I would like to introduce our moderator, Alexandra Petrova, all the way from Lisbon.
Thank you, Enrique. And welcome everyone once again to this Fundraising Adventures panel. I'm very sure that it's going to be a very exciting event, so I'm very much looking forward to the conversation. We have amazing panelists here today. And as Enrique also mentioned, think about the questions because we'll have some time at the end of the panel for your Q&A. So if you're quick enough, your question might be answered as well. And I'm pretty sure that today there's going to be a lot of useful information going your way, so make sure to write all this down. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. So today we have the panelists from two groups. We have the founders and we have the investors. And I'm going to start with the first three founders that we have. So it's Aida, Lutaj, Eliza Jappinen, and Ieva, and I cannot pronounce your surname, but I'll try Vaitkeviciute. So maybe Aida, if you briefly introduce yourself to give the background for the attendees to know who you are and what you have done.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Aida. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Legitify. A little bit about my background. I have a bachelor in finance and MBA in management. I started out my career on Wall Street at Merrill Lynch. Fast forward, I worked for a tech company, basically with focus in financial services in New York. And then after that, I tapped a bit more into the investment side. So I was involved working on private equity with the private equity funds. So I've been both on the investment side and operational side. I also was involved with some private equity portfolio companies on the turnaround and restructuring as VP of financial infrastructure. We also worked through a few large mergers, where I was part of the team. I did it for a few years and then decided to take a break, sabbatical, travel a bit around the world, and then re-landed in the Balkans, which is where I'm originally from. I was involved there with one of the top 4 telco companies in the country. And then I created a new group, the process and procedures team, which pretty much oversaw through all the departments. And then after that, one of the investors in that company, who also was the chairman at the time, asked me to run one of his other portfolio companies with focus on international trade and events. And I ran that company for 3.5 years as CEO. Last year, I stepped down of that from that role. I moved to Sweden to join my partner. And then I joined Antler Stockholm, which is where I co-founded Legitify, met my co-founder, and then we launched Legitify. So that's pretty much my journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aida. And it's really interesting to hear all the different stages that you went through. And I'm sure you're going to mention that even more during the panel. And then next, Eliza, if you could introduce yourself as well, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Eliza Jappinen. I'm CEO of Visible Realms, which is a game company that is changing the way franchise IPs are built for a more inclusive entertainment industry. I am the creative producer and visionary behind Studio Killers, an animated band with over 3 billion views on TikTok. I have had 15 plus years in C-level positions. I started my first company when I was 18. I have had a successful exit behind me of my animation production studio. And I have worked in the intersection of games, music, television, entertainment in general, and basically I'm tackling these industry issues and focusing my tackling of it through mobile games, which I see as one of the most interesting places to do so because of data and the way that data can help empower. And that's just a bit about me.
Thank you so much, Eliza. It sounds really exciting what you're doing. And wow, 18 years old, starting a company, impressive. And Ieva, last but not least, from the founders, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Ieva Vaitkeviciute. You almost pronounced it well, actually.
I haven't been practicing, sorry.
It's really good. So I'm a founder of Mindletic, which is a mental gym inviting everyone to train their mind the same way we train our bodies, either individually with a community or professionals. And basically, I have a background in psychology. And for the past few years, I've been working in tech field, mainly in startups. And I've been always passionate about social business. So during the very first wave of pandemic, I was volunteering with Vilnius municipality, where we try to prognose numbers of corona here in Lithuania, where I'm located. And during that, I experienced panic attack on my own. So this, of course, basically inspired me to gather volunteers during one of the hackathons and create this project, which is today a fully functioning company. We already have around 30 companies working with us. We started by bootstrapping and just closed the very first round of 500K together with the startup WiseGuys. So that's why I know your name. And I'm happy to share my experience during this journey, which is a roller coaster.
I'm sure it is. Thank you so much, Ieva. So thanks a lot for the founders. You see, they have very different and diverse backgrounds. So I'm sure you already have a lot of questions and they're going to tell more. And now to introducing our investors. So we have Anette Nordvall, we have Hanna Nyholm, and we have Jone Vaituleviciute. So if maybe Anette could start first introducing herself.
Sure, very thankful to be here today. Thanks to Nordic Tech Nordic Advocates, Keiretsu Forum Nordics are in collaboration, so I'm getting happy to be here. I am an early stage tech investor and been investing for more than 30 years. Had our first IPO in the late 90s. We sold our company in the early 90s and then we IPO'd the same companies in 98 here at the Swedish Stock Exchange. I reside in Stockholm, Sweden. We moved back to Stockholm after selling the company mainly in 93, and then we spent 17 years on the East Coast in the US. Had an opportunity to go back to Stanford for a year in 2016, also with Nordic Innovation House, to look into investment in early stages, the difference between the Nordics and the West Coast, but you can't compare it. But you can learn a lot. So I felt that the perspective from small countries here in the Nordics is that we pursue to move out early on and aim for a larger market, which is unheard of in the US. You have a large market there in itself. So my take back is that you can narrow down and be very slim on your verticals, which I think is both pissing me off as hell, and then also on the same time build up the opportunity and the courage to actually be a little bit more narrow in your scope of business when you're actually starting a business here in the Nordics. So I invest together with others. I'm an angel investor and can't help it. And I have an opportunity to be so because of the exit, of course, but also for interest to working with innovation. I'm an entrepreneur by heart, but I'm not an innovator by heart. So I can work very hard with other people and I could connect people with others. So my money are a little bit smarter maybe because of that. I call it sometimes pay to play, that I do invest in companies and then I get in and I work with the company for a little bit to make sure also validate what I want the company to go to and where to. Together with now 30 people, we're investing in Cross Nordic Capital, which is a joint venture with other people that I'm trying to help out to showcase what you can do, what you shouldn't do, and making sure, like panels like this, that everybody can do it. It's just a matter of what you're doing it for and for whom you're doing it to. So it's all about your own tenacity, and you should not search. And the aim for your company should not be to have other people's money. It should be to grow with help of other people's money. So you can create some really cool companies and not have billions and billions of dollars and still be very successful.
Thank you, Annette. You managed to include already a lot of useful advice in your introduction. That's also very impressive. Thank you. And Hanna, now, could you please tell a bit more about you?
Yes, my name is Hanna Nyholm. I'm really excited to be here with all these amazing women. I have a very varied background. I've lived a little bit all over the world, actually. I'm an entrepreneur, really, by heritage. My whole family is, and we're also investors. Like, that's something I learned from small. My father was big, and then we do it in our whole family. And I only recently came back to my home country, Finland, a few years ago after living abroad and studying business, but also working a lot of startups. And we had a startup with my brother that we took international abroad. So for me now to kind of get into this Nordic ecosystem is, it's just really interesting and really exciting. I think there's a lot of good things happening here now, and this whole female kind of empowered things. I think my passion is to really lower the barriers for a younger or new generation of women to come into investing, because like Anette said, I mean, you can do it. My background is a lot in equestrian sports, actually. I still work a lot with horses. That's my other side, meanwhile being an executive coach as well. And these days I'm also a partner in the Nordic Startup School, because I think they're doing a great job, and it's a great way to get more help companies and to get like mentoring and really to find new, like I really am mostly interested in the early stage startups and help them to by investing and also being a part of their journey. And it's just a really thrilling journey and to meet new people all the time and.
Thank you, Hanna. And I agree, Nordic Startup School is an amazing initiative. So very great that you're also organizing this. And last but not least, Jone, if you could introduce yourself.
So me again, but a little bit personal about me. So definitely very pleased to be among, as I hear, women with a real entrepreneurship background. I myself, I come more with less entrepreneurship background, but I've I started probably my, let's say, investor career. I studied in Utrecht in the Netherlands, where my first job was actually packaging cookies to where I am now, to being a partner at started WiseGuys. So my actual tech career started at IBM. I've spent there some time, and then actually I spent most of my career in management consulting, where I work with tech companies and helping them with the strategy and attracting finance. And a few years ago, I had this opportunity to raise a fund that I did together with the partners over here. And I'm super glad where I am today, and very glad to be here with the rest of the females.
Thank you so much, Jone. So now that you know who our panelists are, it's probably also easier for you to think about the questions and also, relate to the experience that they're going to share. But first, we're going to start, from our founders' journey and talk to them about, how did it happen? How did they raise their last round? And also, what were the challenges? Because there are a lot of challenges that usually comes with that, and they will tell you about this, and how exactly they overcame those challenges. And I'd like to start with maybe Aida, if you could share your experience on how you raised your last round.
Sure. So like I mentioned earlier when I was introducing myself, I was part of Antler Stockholm cohort, and that's where I met my co-founder. So the first people that we got to pitch to was the Antler Investment Committee, and we were one of the first four startups that they decided to invest in since when we were at idea stage. So that was very helpful because we were able from the beginning to launch within the Antler ecosystem, and then obviously when we did the demo day later on, we had access to their entire group of investors and got great investor leads from that. So our first investment was from Antler. From then we went on to fundraise again, and that's an ongoing fundraise that's going on right now. We have a few committed investors, but I can't comment much on that. So the experience is great. And I think, from my perspective, in terms of challenges, I was sort of like, I had a lot of things happening at the same time. I was telling you when we first started talking together, but I moved to a new country, like where I didn't fluently speak the language. Thankfully, Stockholm's really good with English. I launched a new business, and then along the way I found out I was pregnant too. So I had a lot of things happening at the same time. And I think it's just a matter of, once you're passionate about doing something and you're committed to growing a business, it really inspires you. So in my case, I have Legitify, which is 9 months old, and then I have Charlotte, which is 2.5 months old. And I have the great ecosystems of the Nordics, which help me accelerate both. So yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, when you first shared this with me, I was like, it's so inspiring how you're able to do that. And, looking at what has happened, I think that's amazing what you have achieved. So thank you for sharing that with us. And sure. Eliza, maybe if you could comment next on your last round and also the challenges that were, and, how you overcame them.
Yeah, definitely. So my last round was a seed round. It was a really kind of a quick thing. I was first working kind of towards a Series A. I think my biggest hurdles were sort of defining my steps, what should I raise, how should I raise, how big I should go. It was a lot of research into, meeting with investors, asking what they were into, showing, what we've got, hearing their feedback. So my first advice, just like, do your research, have the conversations. It doesn't have to lead to anything. I think that has been one of the best parts of this, beginning journey, was actually just scoping out and not feeling maybe the sense of pressure, but the pressure was there. I got lucky, however, the Studio Killers got a viral success at the end of the year, which actually put some money to me through the IP. And so what I was looking at was actually just closing a really quick seed fund. And then I was like, let's do the angel thing. And then we basically, ran an event, invited some angels that we knew, asked them, for really small stuff, really a small amount to close the round. And I can tell you, that's a whole lot easier. And I could do it in like a month. And that was a really, I just set really strong parameters to not get stuck in that limbo, not get into the forever, dating space. And that was my experience. And I highly recommend it. It's kind of, it makes it for an interesting challenges. Obviously, you've got things to think about with your cap table and how you want to structure things. But ultimately, if you're looking for something that, you think you can tangibly get a small amount and you only need that, I highly recommend doing something like that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so being focused and then knowing, what's available, and kind of that helped you quite a bit. And then last but not least, if Ieva, you could comment on your last round as well. What has happened?
Yeah, so we basically just closed it, and it was very first round in my life. But basically, when we started to talk with investors was after winning the global hack that basically invited many people, and they were interested in checking the product itself. We had a huge growth of users, and this is where investors became interested themselves, and we started building this relationship. But then I wasn't very sure if we need the round yet. Like, we weren't sure where we are heading, if we are really taking this road in general. And this is where my partner joined me full time as well. And we decided that we will go this way. But the very, very first investors became our clients. And we bootstrapped it in a way that it proved to us that it really works, right? And that people are seeing the value that we want to bring. It's not only in our heads that we really want to solve this problem in this way. And then at the end of the year, when we had the biggest growth in our B2B side, this is where we started talking with investors more seriously and like putting the deadline that, okay, we are focusing on this amount. We are planning to do this and that and reach such things in upcoming year. And our prognoses were actually a lot more pessimistic than they are now. So it was, I think the end of the round was pretty good in a way that we were confident ourselves. So I think my advice would be to really like start proving that things work by finding clients first that will make this sustainable. And once you have this, it will be easier to you yourself also talking with investors, and that will gather specific investors interested in your problem, in your solution, and similar style as you are, I would say. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good advice. And I see, actually, it's so nice to see a lot of companies that do that. They kind of have this first testing round with their first customers. They get a lot of feedback from them, and only then, and they improve their product very well. Just one follow-up question to this, Ieva. When you were going into the hack, did you think that you would have a company, you would be running a company, or no?
No. It was a weekend activity. I wanted to solve the issue that I'm interested in. I don't know, it was not hard for me to gather people interested in the topic from the background in psychology and then techies. And it's easy for me to sell the idea that I believe in. So it was like, let's start this thing as a weekend thing. And then we were just like, it snowballed afterwards. I was just picking up opportunities. So
yeah, that's how it always happens, right? Okay, so thank you now for sharing the experiences from your last round. And now actually you've already given quite a lot of practical advice, but if you have to, if you have a person who's really looking for advice in front of you, what would be like the best ever piece of advice that you could give to them? And also different stages when you see what could be the ways that people could raise funds for their company. And maybe now I'll start with Eliza, if you could share some of your advices, and then we'll continue with the rest.
Yeah, I would say Eva's point of view of having that validation, customer validation, user validation is really important. Actually, we did that. We had a crowd. We did Kickstarter. Very, very first thing we did for the pilot to the animated series. That wasn't the thing that started off the game. But then the second thing we did was actually go to the game demo, like Pocket Gamers indie game pitch. And I really wanted to validate, again, the product and the idea and see where we were with that before really going further and asking for financing. So also I took a couple of publisher meetings just to gauge what's going on in the market, and we got second place in the big indie pitch, which I think was great considering it was not to be sexist, majority male, and we have a dress up game, so it was one of those things like, oh, is this the audience, how will we be received? But it is a very sort of gender neutral dress up game, and that gave me like a great sense of hope, and it gave me a good indicator that we're on the right path. So this was, my market validation. I've got the fan base that obviously is already crazy about the creative ideas. And my biggest advice is the research, like really it's like researching and finding out from the investor point of view, finding out from your audience, finding out what grants are out there for you, which ways you can fund these things. Research is really fantastic. It's your best friend, and it will give you a little roadmap, as you kind of wiggle your way through the tough parts. And I've found that, the hurdles or the blockers in fundraising are very, they're very like realistic issues, right? It's like the big investors won't come on board until I've got the KPIs on games, because that's so easy to get, really, like everybody does that, and they push the soft launch pretty quickly. So they want to get on once you've gotten to that stage. So that's the kind of, okay, I know I'm not going to have a conversation with them until I've got those numbers. And then, but I've got all these other great key indicators, and who are my early startup people, and what's the hindrances there? What are they looking for? What are they excited about? And there it's all about, finding people who believe in your vision, who love what you're doing before. And that is where maybe it can be a bit of a hurdle to be, female, especially maybe in the games fair, where majority still are men. And, and it's a fun thing, they want to feel fun and excited about a product that they have in their hand. And if they're not the target demographic, that's a really big leap for them to get them excited about something like that. So I've been trying to stay open-minded in where to look for my allies and where to look for my people who ultimately will see the beauty in it, and to also be realistic when realizing that, okay, maybe even if these are the most established investors, early stage investors in this area, maybe they're not for me just because of who they're investing in or what they're investing for. It doesn't mean anything about me or my product, so that's a little bit like also like a personal reflection, that don't get upset, get proactive. That's my advice.
Yeah, thank you, Eliza. I get a feeling like you're treating this a little bit like a game, as well, choosing who to talk to, having the strategy, having the plan. So that's a very
Definitely
interesting. Okay. And Ieva, maybe if you could comment next on, what would be your piece of advice to the others?
Yeah, I guess the main thing is to find the pain that you really feel, or you have someone around you that has the pain. Because this is, at the end of the day, this is what pushes you forward. And if you're really passionate about the topic or the issue you are focusing on, then even though the solution might change, or the people who are joining you might change, but it will keep you focused. And by focusing on the solution of the issue that you're interested in, you will focus on bringing the value, and not the small things like money, for example. This is important, of course, for sustainability, but if you have it as a main drive, it won't go far. You have to see it kind of a long term with the focus on the pain. And for me, this really pays off in a way when I read anonymous feedbacks from our users. Sometimes it's so fulfilling. You really see that you bring value there for people that you want. And yeah, and when you have the very first startup, I think sometimes people lack a way of seeing this realistically, that at the end you will need to think about the finances and not only the idea. So even if you focus on the idea, but be realistic that it doesn't come in the first month, especially if you go in a way that you want to prove the concept with the clients, right? So if you have a buffer for yourself to test the idea, it might be much more successful, and you wouldn't burn yourself mentally. So really focus on your own mental health.
Yeah, I agree. That's very important. but also what you mentioned, having the passion and the vision behind the product, I think helps a lot. But at the same time, it's very difficult to balance, because when you have the passion and vision, sometimes it's hard to be realistic. And that's exactly what you've said. Thank you so much. And Aida, maybe if you could also comment, because I remember in our discussion, you talked also a lot about, different fundraising stages. So, what's your advice?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot of things when you first start out a business, there's a lot of things that you need to do, and then you can be a bit scattered in the beginning. So unless you have the experience of running a company before, or maybe having founded a startup, then you can go your own way. But if you don't, then I think it's really good to see what options are out there. There are a lot of incubator, accelerator type programs that can help you go through the first stages and then be aware of the things that you need to think early on in the beginning. So those are very helpful. And also in terms of like the various channels of getting funding. So there are the incubator accelerator programs where you get an opportunity to pitch, and then to their team, then you can get an investment that way. And then once you've validated the idea, like Eliza said, validation is really important. So once you've validated the idea, and then you can build a business, and you firmly believe you can build a business out of this, then you need to start thinking from a business perspective, right? Like the financials are really important, because you can get so like in love with your idea that you forget like what it takes to run a business. So thinking about when you need to fundraise, how much you need to fundraise, having all your financials, your financial model pretty tied up, and what's the runway that you have at hand or don't have maybe, and then how soon do you need the money by. So that's really important to be strategic here. So you can look at angel investors, and then you can look at VCs. Typically VCs need a bit more traction if they're engaging in seed round, and then angels are more willing to move quickly and sign a term sheet that's less complex than a shareholder agreement by a VC, which takes a lot of legal work on both ends. So just really be aware of those various categories. And then when you do your research is also important, but when you do your research, focus on investors that invest in the domain where you're building something. I'm in legal tech, so for me, talking to investors that invest in consumer companies doesn't make any sense, right? Like I need to talk to investors that invest in B2B software, legal tech, fintech, those sort of categories, or maybe investors that are agnostic, right? And also being aware of like maybe sometimes VCs invest in seed stage and later on, but they will be willing to talk to early stage on startups. It's really important to make sure that the VCs that you choose understand what stage you are in the process, because you don't want to take money from a VC that invest later stage and suddenly they're pressuring you to have more traction way too early on. That puts too much stress on the team, and it can be damaging. So I think it's like it's like a date, like a dating process. You have to click personality wise, and also in terms of long-term vision. And I would say it's not investors versus entrepreneurs. You're a team, so you're coming together to build something great. And there's nothing more inspiring and powerful that people come across from various backgrounds and various walks of life to build something that can grow globally. That's very inspiring.
I agree, it is. And yeah, thank you for commenting about this. And I think it's already bridging us very well to kind of the next part of the discussion. And I see that a lot of people were nodding, so we're definitely going to talk more about this. But if we're talking about, startup investor relationship, and now this is going to be kind of a two-sided question, because I would like to hear from the founders and also from the investors, what's the ideal investor-startup relationship that you see, and how you can get the best out of it. But maybe if we still start with the startups, and then we'll give the stage to investors, if that's still okay. So maybe Jone, what's Jone, what's your opinion on this? Okay, let's start maybe a bit from the investors, and then kind of have a discussion together.
Sure. So yeah, I think knowing that I'm coming from like early stage, also what Aida mentioned, the accelerator and early stage investor that would usually come in like this pre-validation or validation stage. I think in many cases, founders underestimate how important it is to kind of find the right partner at that stage. I think in most cases, once you're going to seed in later stages, then you're kind of, you're doing this research, kind of who is a good fit. But in early stage, we get a lot of inbound where startups, they just want the money, the help, like the knowledge, but they don't like really care whom they're making their relationship with. And this is, I think, the kind of the biggest issue, because actually we are also here for a very long term. And most of the accelerators will stick with you for like 5 years to come or more, like early stage funds. So that's important to take into consideration. It's not for 1 year, it's not for the duration of the program or incubation. So this is number one. And We also say usually that it's better to be alone than in a bad marriage. So that also goes for startups. If you don't feel that it's right, just better bootstrap and also, as Eliza said, focus on the business for a while. Don't keep on fundraising for a long time. So don't keep on dating. But once you transition from this dating to kind of the marriage, it's also very important to have the relationship not with the fund, but with at least one partner or, like kind of the management team from the fund. And why is this important is I think more and more we see this, that there is a relationship between the startup founder and the partner rather than, like kind of the whole team, because it might be very large as well. But when the decision time will come in the fund, should we back the company further? Do we have enough funds to back them further? But if we do, there's usually a sale from one partner to the rest of the investment committee about the team, about the founders, that I really believe in it. I really see, the future of it, because in no way all of the kind of the partners in the fund will be on the same page. So really, as a founder, you need to make sure that you have this very close relationship, very personal relationship. You're transparent, you're open about your struggles. And then I think this relationship will really will really help you to kind of go together with a fund in a very good tandem, rather than, I got your money, I'm, dealing fundraising further, but it's really gonna be your friend, your partner. So definitely take that into consideration from the very first fundraise you do.
Yeah, thank you, Jone. I think that's really important. And maybe, Ieva, since you've been working together, maybe you could also comment, on your vision of how the relationship should go.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm coughing all the time, but Corona negative, as far as I know. So I also totally agree on the investor and founding team, or the whole startup being a team. And especially after you meet some of them, angels first, VCs later, you will start feeling that with some you are actually on a better terms, and you have to think about how you will co-own this, because what does it mean taking in the investment? You are becoming co-owners, and you will make some hard decisions together. Also starting the relationship, I'm amazed at how many of those questions that might seem like being critical to the startup during the dating side actually saved my life so many times. For example, the whole IP thing, it was covered from the very beginning, from the very first questions that they had. I wasn't, without those questions, I think I would have had a lot more paperwork to do during the due diligence. So you start building the relationship during the dating part, right? And then you may or you may not use each date as a source of knowledge for your startup, but as well for the future marriage that you will have. So each meeting that you had on the way will either make this relationship stronger or it will make it looser, right? So I think it comes from both sides, and seeing that you both want the same thing, you both want this project to go further, even if you haven't signed the papers, but even before that, it really changes the perspective how you communicate with them. Similar thing in a relationship, I guess, if I can be that intimate in the sense that it's either you have a conflict about how for us to sustain this relationship, or you have a conflict how to solve my own thing or reach what I want to reach, right? So as long as we are focusing on a project we want to push forward, it's really pleasant relationship, I would say. I've gained so much knowledge, and they see so many other startups. They can actually, like, each meeting is so resourceful that I see a great value. But I think you also have to come with presence in that relationship. So you bring your own perspective, you bring your own ideas, and how you want to push this forward and work on this project, and then it's a win-win.
Yeah, thank you, Ieva. I think the comparison that we had running, I think it works very well, and not only for fundraising, for all areas of business. We always keep hearing that we are dealing with people after all. So it's And each of us is bringing such wealth of knowledge behind us. So it would be a loss if we don't get to hear the other person. So I definitely agree. And maybe now also hearing from the other side, once again, from the investor side, so maybe Hanna, if you would like to comment next on what we have just discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of the same things that are important to me as well. I mean, it really starts with, we're all people. So for me as an investor and being also like a private angel investor, it really, for me, you need to convince me as a human being that, you know, the why you're starting your business. I loved how Ieva was talking about like solving a pain. So basically you have this amazing idea, but the world is full of ideas. So you have to be able to present it in a way that I can see that, okay, what are you solving? What kind of problem, you know, does the world need this solution? Is there any other solution? And also there's a difference with having ideas versus being able to realize that it can become a business. And so when I come in often at the early stage, it's really like the personality, and you have to create that relationship. And it's like you said, dating. And you also have to realize that when I give you, I'm trusting you with my money. So then I'm kind of expecting something, you know, to get something in return. I am a co-founder, like I'm not a co-founder. So basically the work has to be done by you, but it has to be, the communication has to be very clear. I was just sitting in on a workshop on due diligence, and you know, if you don't do it from the very beginning, then it's going to catch up with you at some point. So to be very open and clear with your communication, and not hide anything, and just kind of present that, you know, every step that you take, and be clear about what direction you're heading, and having that roadmap, and kind of come back to me all the time, you know, where you're going and what you're doing. And that's really the most important thing, is the human connection that you have, and to see that it's something that is going to bring you forward and what you're solving. And I mean, as an investor, I'm going to look into those areas that are important to me. And I love the fact that I try to look for female founders, or then other areas that are interesting. And if it's something that I don't know, I'm also going to look how you work with the team, because you can't do it alone. You always need to bring, so when the idea starts in your head, or one person has it in their head, at some point you need to bring on board a co-founder or a team. How do you interact with them? You know, how can you take that role on? Because in the beginning it's quite overwhelming and it's a bit messy. So that's really how you're gonna be doing it. The numbers and all that is gonna come, but it also has to be something that someone is willing to pay for your solution. And then I can come in and step. And I like to be quite involved in a way to see what it is, but I still want to see that you understand how you're evolving your business and that it becomes a business.
Yeah, thank you, Hanna. Those were some really good insights. And maybe now again, from the founder's perspective, if Aida, you would like to comment on, you know, the relationship between the founders and investors, and also maybe, you know, since you were part of the accelerator, how, you know, is there a way that you chose it and why, and, you know, how do you find the right one as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think first thing, like in terms of the relationship with investors, those tend to be long-term relationships. So like Hanna said, and then also Eliza mentioned earlier, you know, it's really important to find the right people that you know, that see the long-term opportunity when it comes to the business and are willing to walk with you from their perspective. At the end of the day, you know, it is a financial transactions, and you have responsibilities when you take someone's money, so you have to deliver on that. But there needs to be a connection there, whether it's the passion for the idea and what you're building, but also at a personal level, this is someone that, you know, it's not a transaction-based relationship, right? It's like, I want to get coffee with this person and discuss some of the problems I'm dealing with or how they can help potentially. So, you know, I've been lucky in my career to have worked with great investors that have backed me up in other businesses that I've been a part of. And so for me, those relationships are really important. That's what I would say. So really taking the time to you know, talk to investors. I know that sometimes it's distracting for the business, and you know, you want to wrap it up very quick, but those are relationships that you want to build early on, so that then you have a pool of investors that you can talk to at different stages of your growth journey, because it takes time to know someone. You can't just like, I mean, I wouldn't want to meet an investor within 2 weeks and then take their money. It's just, I need more time to develop a relationship with them and also answer any questions that they may have. when it comes to the business and then the vision and things like that. So it's good to invest some time in building those relationships and overall. In terms of the accelerators, I think those are really good in the early stages when you're looking, depending on where you're coming from. But even if you have a pre-existing idea and a team, to put some structure to what are the main things you need to work on to get validation till to the point that you're ready to get out there and then start fundraising. In my case, I needed a co-founder, and I've learned the hard way, like not to sort of like get into business with friends or family members. It just, for me personally, it doesn't work, but everyone's different. It was really important to meet someone that was at the same level of mindset as I was about, creating something and growing it. And I was lucky to meet my co-founder, Arco. So the accelerator helped me do that. And they also help you with, early on when you're doing the demo day. After that, typically you have access to their entire ecosystem of investors, which you can build relationships for later rounds further on. And also, you can get also great advisors for your particular line of business. So.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess also being part of that accelerator is already kind of like a step proving that for the investors that, those are the teams worth looking at, and, those are the selected ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in our case, I was one of the teams that got investment. So yeah, so we were portfolio companies of that investor. And so they are also eager to introduce you to other investors who may be a good fit for you, in addition to the research that you do yourself, because you still have to do your homework and, and go out there and do your own due diligence on investors the same way they do due diligence on the startups. But it absolutely helps. Like in the early stages, our strategy was we were not going to put ourselves out there. We kind of took a step back and see what investors reached out to us. And then we got a great lineup. And now I'm at the point where maybe, okay, I'm doing a bit more research on my own, other than what the existing investors are introducing to us. So.
Yeah, thank you. And again, maybe from the investors side, Anette, I remember when we talked about this, you had some really good comments. Maybe if you could share more about your kind of vision of the relationship between investor and the company.
So many comments around it. You guys are so smart. I hope that your pencils are burning, or you're recording this because the information from all these smart people is really, really foundation for you guys to be able to navigate your own company or what you want to do. But I think it starts with understanding yourself and your own strengths in what you need to have to be compatible. It's like Aida said, I don't want to work with my family. And that's, I can feel the energy from you through the Zoom window here. So absolutely understand that. But understand who you're compatible with, and if you're going to be a co-founder with someone, what is that person's strengths? Not because you know her or him. For me, it's not so complex, but it's very complex, because as an investor, I'm looking into timing. I'm looking into solving a problem that is real, that we were talking about, but also understanding the market, what the market looks like, competition. Eliza said that. What is all the research that you can do, not prior to, but meanwhile, so it's always fresh. So you don't sit there and think your head off and then nothing happens because you forget what you were looking for in the beginning. So do work, but make sure that you pinpoint all these different things. Make it a David star or whatever, that you have all these different angles that you need to control meanwhile. Also, talking about ownership, some of us are VCs, others are private investors, and I'm both. So when you're in your early phase, I like that you be able to use actually crowdfunding to start funding some early project. I mean, forget about the cap table. You can always mush those into a smaller company on the side and make them a part of an owner if you want to clean the cap table because you have a huge VC coming in. But don't forget to keep your ownership. You still need to hold a lot of ownership in your company if you're planning on taking a lot of tranches with a lot of other people's money. If you're in marketing and all these different kind of ventures, usually cost more than it actually is for me to invest in. I do invest in greasy, dirty industry because I have a sustainable goal. I want to clean that shit up. I want to make it smarter. I want to digitalize everything that is going to do. We're still going to need to have vehicles, even though it's going to be flying cars, who knows, but we're still going to press that freaking metal, and we need to make sure that we do it in a more sustainable way, because some of the things that we're doing on Earth is right now not sustainable. I don't see myself as an impact investor, but of course I am, because I want to be a positive, sustainable impact for us here in the future. So it's all about your own passion, who you like with and who you thrive together with. But it actually starts with not as an investor because they are good advisors. It starts with advisors. Go back to your professor that you had that you felt was really good, or your aunt or uncle or your grandma or whoever, because all these people are there to help you. If you have a neighbor or you find someone in a network, ask them to jump some questions with them and so forth. People are really interested in helping. But it's also a lever of when do you actually start asking for help and when do you take real advice. So it's more of like understanding who you self are and your power that you can build forward in a company. Not everyone is built as an entrepreneur. These ladies in this room are amazing. I mean, totally amazing. Also have a passion and an opportunity to live. If you're living in your home country and living in your home time, I suggest you to move away a little bit, get another perspective, move not only away from home, but move away from your country, understand the challenges and so forth, and you will grow so much because you don't know anything. I mean, you can't talk the language. We have several of the people that are moving, off and on and so forth, just because you will grow as a person and you will understand other things and take it into realistic facts. And it's all about a numbers game when you come up into the higher level of investment. So meanwhile, make sure that you take your time to grow, make sure that you keep your ownership and that you have good advisors around you, and ask the same questions to several of them. Ask if someone would be a mentor for you. And build your data room with information, because if you're going to start to do that, letting people into your finances, you don't want to hustle and find all these different documents that you didn't know that you needed to have in the data room, as even though if it's the simplest board meeting notes, make sure you translate it into a corporate language so people actually can understand it from the outside. English is usually the better language but you can do it together with your native language. And make sure that you understand what you have around you. And don't be afraid to pivot to make money.
Thank you, Annette. I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. And yeah, it's true that sometimes when there is a lot of exciting things going around, it's a bit more boring to actually order things and make sure that everything is there, but it is really, really helpful. Thank you. And Eliza, also from the founder's perspective, how do you see the relationship? And also, in your industry, what works best?
Oh, I mean, I am happy to have gone through an accelerator and build those relationships. And one of the things with Nordic Startup School for me was definitely networking. I knew I've been a creative. And so as a creative person, I've been sitting behind my computer, thinking, dreaming, building like, the Bond villain with a cat, and I haven't been out there talking. So what I wanted to do was get out, talk to people, actually accelerate my networking. It was a really great way to start. The other thing is going to industry events, because obviously, Nordic Startup isn't necessarily focused on games and entertainment, but I knew that was another thing penciled into my calendar, is like, okay, find out every single event, go to every single event, find out, which events are for me, which ones are working, because then you can start taking them off your calendar if they're a waste of time, But those are my first kind of things. So, with relationship wise, I'm always looking for, the people who get me, and I'm happy to have found the people who get me in Nordic Startup School, and people who encourage me for the big vision and who have actually helped me develop the big vision. That's really great. I must say I have mentioned dating, and I think we've all mentioned dating. But I want to bring out an interesting thing about dating. As women, we know that if we're actually dating, we're not supposed to be needy or too forthcoming. We're supposed to not call after the first date and stuff like that. Totally opposite in investing. You should be really proactive. You should be aggressively dating. You should be on, the crazy girlfriend stalker mode. And I think this is just a joke, but obviously, but I'm saying you should really be proactive. You should be giving your updates. You should be picking up the phone and calling and asking what they think. You should be asking about feedback, everything that you don't do when you're dating. So it's a little bit of a wrong thing to say, dating. And then I want to also say on a personality thing, if you are a very outgoing and a very self-assured person, do realize that when somebody says several things to you, they're probably right, and you should take that advice on board. So I know that also go-getters, you need to temper yourself and listen, and those who are maybe a little bit more reserved, go and go at it, So those are my two advices on how to deal with those relationships.
Yeah, thank you, Eliza. That makes a lot of sense. And also, if you're reserved, I've found out that getting feedback sometimes also could help in that case, because sometimes you think, I'm not doing the right thing, my product is not big enough, or I'm not being the right type of the CEO. But then if you talk to someone and they tell you that actually you're doing great, and I think this is your strong side, it helps you a lot also. So definitely also in that sense. Okay, a lot of things now talking about, startup investor relationship. And I think we're going to still continue the conversation about this. But there is now one question that I think probably every investor gets whenever they are asked the question. So you probably already have a very good rehearsed answer. But maybe kind of to twist it a little bit, if you would imagine that you would see a startup and there is one thing that, they have, this one or a set of things, you would instantly be like, okay, I'm going to invest there. Probably not going to happen because you like to think a lot, and I understand that. But what do you think, makes the biggest difference on whenever you're deciding where to invest? What makes that difference? So I would like to get back again to Anette, and maybe if you could start with this question.
Oh, well, it's all about, I think Hanna said it before, it's all about passion, what you feel that you're closest to home. It's usually that. Like I said before, I like greasy industry, but I also like a sustainable, environment. And I thrive for things that are smart, that are shifting things into a future that is more where we can be. We were talking prior to also if you should bet on, if it's if you have a more diverse team, if that is the cause and so forth. And I don't invest in team. I actually am so early, so I invest in what they're solving. And the team comes with it. I then build trust for Eliza, for example, to think, yeah, she will be able to do this. But you can always hire people to it. VC, usually when they come in later on, and now we're talking A round, you have a confirmation on the market, they're making money and all that stuff. They have the opportunity to go well, team is the most important thing in the world. And usually it's guys who says that. And it's like, yeah, hell yeah, because I've been shoveling shit for you guys in the past 5 years to be able to get to this point where we are now. And we have hired the best people that we feel that can actually grow this company. So for me, it's more of what can I do? Do I have the opportunity to, and Jone said the same thing. I have a group of 30 people that are individual and we're investing together from a fund, but people still need to like what I'm thinking and seeing. And usually that we have 29 different objectives of what we think is a good investment, but we have investment criteria. So is it, can we afford it? Can blah, blah, there's a bunch of other things too as well. And do they understand the market themselves, and can they actually do this? But it's always like that. But the starting point is if you understand exactly what they're doing, or if you feel that this is what's missing, I understand how the future would look with this, I will be more than happy to do so. And if Oatly, for example, that just IPO'd, it's a food tech company here in Sweden. If they would have come to me with Oatly the milk, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to invest. But I never had the opportunity because I'm a tech investor. So food tech would never come to me. So that's also a thing. Even though people understand that you need to go to people that have expertise, it's not that I am in my narrow thing. I love if I can shift the dirty industry, but I also love smart things for the future. So have that in mind when you're meeting with people. Fundraising is hard work. You're not going to be able to run your business as you think you would, but make sure that you meet the people and you continue to meet the people that you think is actually going to help you with the networking, introducing you to others. And the more that we're sitting in the same room, we understand that I'll call Hanna and Jone. I know exactly what they are looking for now. Not to say, but still. So just to make sure that we do expand and we do co-invest, because the only thing I can do is to syndicate. I don't have that much money. So, but I have a lot of companies that I invested in, so maybe I will be enormously successful soon. You never know.
Thank you, Anette. And yeah, I agree. And even what we're doing here, kind of bringing, the ecosystem together, I think that helps also a lot, because especially in kind of the startup ecosystem, the more people you connected to, you could share some things. I think that brings everyone very much forward. So I completely agree. Hanna, maybe if you could tell your unique perspective on, what is the startup or what is the feature that you're looking for when investing?
Well, I mean, we're going like in the same circle, because it comes down to that, like the people and the person and the passion. Like you have to have the passion, because sometimes you can come up with an idea, but if you're not passionate, because the journey is quite long, as some of the founders here have seen, and there may be only starting point, but it's a long journey. I mean, it's like, it's like having a child more or less. And so you have to be resilient. And how does the passion kind of cover the your journey when things go hard, because at some point maybe you're going to have some challenges or difficulties. I mean, we're all been living in a COVID world for a little while now, so how easy, how resilient are you, how much can you pivot, how much do you listen to others? And one thing that came to my mind just now is like and it was talking about Oatly or something like that. I want to make the world a better place. So a lot of my philosophy is about, almost anything that are smart solutions to making our world better. I'm a mother to a little toddler, so I want to, hope that he has a little bit of a cleaner world and a better world tomorrow. So what kind of out-of-box thinking do you have, and how can you translate that into a business or some sort of solution? And it doesn't have to be like the solution itself. It doesn't have to be anything like astronomically like rocket science as such, but it has to maybe do some good or help people with their pains, like Ieva or whatever other service that can make life easier or better. And then it's also a difference between something that is something nice, like is it needed because it's nice, or do we really need it because it's like a really critical thing that needs to be solved? Because there's also a lot of nice and fun things and ideas that come forth, and some succeed as well. But as an investor side, I'm not sure if that would be where I would go down the road. Yeah, and then of course, when you're in the syndicate, it changes a little bit. Again, it comes down to the people, because you try to find the people around you in a syndicate that have the same core values at least, because then your values will translate into what direction you're gonna start investing. But I mean, this is such a big topic. You could talk about only this for a longer time, and to find one thing is hard. But yeah, know your why and be passionate and be and just don't be afraid of the work as well.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you. Then you, Hanna.
And one thing too, yeah. I don't think that now in the future or for the future, I mean, obviously we invest in things and we're in the long haul. I have investments that are 12 and 15 years old already, and they're still working on it, of course, on another level than when I started with it. But for the future now, you can't really do something that doesn't make shifts into how we behave on Earth and how we use Earth. So it needs to be, sustainable innovation, or something that is shifting the state that we're using and performing today. So to come up and say, I have a fashion company, I can do, environmentally better cotton skirts. It's still cotton. 1 kilo will still cost 28,000 liters to produce. It doesn't matter if it's organic or if it's, crappy or cotton. It's still going to cost a lot of resources. So we need to think about what is material and why, and then figure something out on that end. I think that is also very important to understand, that you can shift so much in a mindset of having the right attitude.
Yeah,
I think that's why investing is actually even more fun in a way, or I find it even more interesting these days, because you can actually make that little impact, even if you wouldn't call yourself an impact investor, but because then you really look into the solutions that the companies are, or the startup founders are, creating.
Right, and all of these cool companies comes out of all these incubators anyway. So if you hang around those, you will always get some cool ideas, and then you just need to make sure that you fuel them up a little bit so they continue and not, lose that tenacity.
Yeah, and also, the vision or the predictive vision that you need to have, I think that's very impressive, because sometimes, as Hanna mentioned, something could be nice, but then how do you know that in the future something changes in the world, and that nice would actually start to become critical. So this kind of gamble is, or being able to predict what will kind of shine and what will not, is also very important. Jone, you have been now waiting for, do you have any comments on this as well? Kind of what you're looking for at Start WiseGuys and also yourself?
Yeah, so I think I can just like also add to that, strategy matters a lot. So of course we can like say like, you know, the founders, the team and everything, but still at the end of the day, like the very brief check that you do is this my stage, right? And we need to stick also to where our input matters most. Again, I can use like a probably Oakley example, right? Would love to invest, right? I just need to really sustain from all those super shiny companies, because we are here to help early stage entrepreneurs, really those that really will have super hard time raising from VCs because they have no traction and almost no validation. So if we make sure that, you know, we're investing in the right stage, then for sure, still number one then is the team, because I probably get like the same free applications, like kind of in the same idea from different teams in the same week, you know, so kind of the load of those ideas, I like to say that almost like there's nothing that has not been invented yet, or nothing that's like extremely unique. It's just a matter of execution. So we call it the founder market fit. So I think Ieva is a good example in this case, I feel that she's, you know, running the business where she's a perfect fit, and to actually make it work, because she has the background, she has the network, she has the passion. So probably like also I could call the founder market fit also a passion, where you see that the person really wants to make a difference, right? So if we see that this is the best person to execute it, and probably in Ieva's case, if someone would be, I don't know, let's take it from construction industry and saying, but you know what, we need like, you know, to kind of help them, you know, people to work with their mental health more, I might struggle to believe that they would be the best people to execute this, right? So in this case, you know, we cover that, you know, there is this founder market fit. But this is, you know, on our side. If to give a very practical example or like practical advice to founders, I think this is what Anette mentioned, is the diligence, right? Kind of really be prepared, like have those, you know, freaking documents in one place, the numbers in one place, something that, you know, if someone asks you, you can follow up immediately, right? So it's also like a little bit to what Eliza said, like a little bit of this freakish follower. It was like, whoop, here you go, you wanted this. So that's just very practical. It matters so much. It made really a big difference when we were choosing between several companies and we just had very limited ability to invest. We said, okay, like this founder, they were following up much quicker. They had like everything in one place. It probably will, then it means that they will be able to raise from later stage investors also quicker. So that's a very important thing for us. And of course, at the end of the day, it's so much about the gut feeling with all the kind of, you know, yes and no's, market sizes, etc. Just yesterday, we had this investment committee, 25 super nice teams. We need to select 12. And we get so much feedback from different mentors. And it just completely messed up with our heads. We're like, oh my God, we love all of those 25 companies. So then we said, okay, now each of us have to think like personally, how we felt about those companies before. Did we feel like this is the right fit? And at the end of the day, this is how the decision probably will be made.
Now you're telling our secret sauce that it's gut feeling. God damn it.
Oh, we measure this and that, and then like have to prepare all those extensive materials, and then at the end of the day, I love
the long Excel sheets and everything. We actually were talking the other day in our group and said we need to put more heart than not just being up in our head all the time and talking about numbers and fixing and growth and stuff like that, and just take it down. Who do we actually believe in? Is this something that is for the future? So I think it's interesting that you guys, everybody's struggling with that. We're still humans, like Hanna said.
Yeah, but sorry, you had a comment as well.
Yeah, I tried raising the finger. Now I'm trying this hand on the picture.
Oh.
So, yeah, the secret sauce is the same from our side. Like sometimes you get more people interested in investing than you can accept, right? You don't want to like sell all of the company. And then at the end, investors might also have their own pitches. They are also selling themselves to you, right? And you as a team start discussing, so what is the feeling like? Whom do we want to build this together? So the secret sauce is similar, Anette.
Yeah. Good.
Yes, Hanna, please.
No, and that's actually a really good point, because that goes again, then it goes back to us as well, because especially sometimes when there's like singular, like, or investors, like angel investors on their own, if it's not a syndicate, who are already sharing core values, but if they're like, alone, and then you start bringing in more, and then at some point, like, you really have to check that, because, maybe, one angel has been, or investor has been on board from the beginning, and then you start bringing others, so that the value stays the same, and it's aligned, the values of the company and the direction, and your why. So it's important every time a new person comes on board, in some sense as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Eliza, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that actually, if we are creatures of emotion and passion and all of these things. Obviously, gut does play a part, but I want to, just for all of us as the founders and as investors, talk about and think about biases, and the biases that we come in, and the industry's biases as well, and that sometimes those are part of our gut reactions. So I hope that we can all also, make a note to like check our biases in that process as well. And I would say that that's one of the reasons why representation is so important in all specters for us founders, that there's more of us in diversity, so that we are present to be making, that impression, and that there is representation on the other sides, on the people making those decisions for us, because they'll have different gut reactions maybe.
That these are mainly men, so I think it's getting more women in there, but it's complicated to get also into the jargon that we see, especially here in Sweden. We have some really old investment companies, so it's not that easy to get through either, and it's also built from the universities, so it's a long process, but eventually it's always survival of the fittest, right? So it's always going to be, if we can be here and be role models for people that are listening, men and women, or whatever kind of title you want to have. It's more of like the more people are doing it different and add other values into it, see it from other perspectives. I told Alexandra too, though, that I'm an astrologer, and the reason why I am an astrologer, or why I continue to actually educate myself to be a professional astrologer, is because we hired so many crappy people. And if I look into a person's chart, I can actually pinpoint, tenacity, head process, and so forth, and view of the future. If this is a person who is a really good worker, or if this is someone who actually drops stuff after a couple of years because they can't do it. And that has been a super huge shift. So I'm a mentor now for several people that are in these segments of the world, for them how to actually shift their mindset and get into it. The younger, several of you guys are so young, so you guys like, what? This is normal, this is how it should be, but no. It's still a wheel that we need to make sure that that we actually are feeling our feelings, that we actually are building on our strengths and then adding values into it. We are females, so we will have show more emotions, most of us, but not all of us. And it's the same thing with men. There's a lot of men with feelings and so forth that very few maybe show them in a work arena. So understand that you're a different person from where you're home and when you're working, and make sure that you feel that you like both, that you actually can live with that, and that you can build your strength, and taking pauses like Ieva is doing, making people to actually breathe, and so forth. Some of us can go on for forever. I have way too much energy and so forth, but then it's like, all people are not like that, and even I need to pause. So, but this is exciting. So it's fun for you guys to get to know not only your sun sign, guys. You have more than that.
Yeah, thank you. And it was also like the previous discussion was a good segue to actually the next question that we have, the final one before we open for the Q&A. And we already talked a lot about it, since people sometimes, or most of the times, they tend to like people that are very similar to themselves, and the industry, both, being a founder and also being an investor is not very equally represented yet, but we're getting there hopefully one day. So I was just gonna, ask you maybe as a kind of wrap up or last thing, what do you see could help to make us more equally represented? Because I remember we were talking to Ieva, and then she mentioned that there was this report made by NGP Capital, and it still says, it's still very recent, so it's this year, and it says that the female gender alone reduced the probability of a founder being allocated venture capital by 17%. So, you know, what? And I know that it's, you know, things have been improving, but, you know, what do you think? What's your opinion? What would you like to change, and how would you like to do it? So maybe Aida, you've been silent for a while, so I'll give you a stage now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's really important to talk also about balance in addition to our journeys. At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we have, all of us have all different kinds of needs beyond just business. I became a first-time mother throughout this journey myself, launching my own company, and I discovered a whole new aspect of life that I didn't know existed before. And you know, I was able to manage it, but, you know, pretty much like breaking down those barriers that if someone is a founder and a female founder, and maybe she wants to have kids, like when you have that, you can't plan these things in life. They just happen when they're meant to be. And just being, as long as you're committed, and then you have the mindset that you want to build a business, you know, women are like an unbelievable force of nature in a lot of dimensions. We create human life. So everything is possible. I think it's really important to mention that for female youngers, because I started my career on Wall Street in finance, and it was sort of like, it's a very male dominated type of world. And, you know, a lot of the younger women back then, I remember they would think that, well, you know, you can't start a career, a family early on because it's going to interfere with your career. That is so wrong. And, you know, no woman should ever feel like that. You can have your family, you can have your children, you can have your career, you can launch your own company. Everything is possible. Obviously, you have to do the work behind it, but, you know, it's really important to just break down those barriers. So I just wanted to communicate that.
Yeah, thank you. That's very inspirational. And also, you know, I've been thinking that myself, and the fact that you're doing it, the fact that you're saying it, you know, it's very, very important. Jone, what about you? Any comments on this?
Yeah, I think I'll just try to be very quick here. But at the beginning, I think one of the panelists said that it's great to be here, you know, by like so many like people who can kind of show the example to the rest, right? And I think this is the most important. If you know, we can sit here and like kind of, you know, whine about like yeah, like there's not enough females in this area. But if we look like 20 or like even 50, like 50 years back, like it was complete like well. It looked like there was not a single female in this area, right? I think we have come a long way in that. And really, there is a big positive change, and I would just focus kind of, yeah, not on the kind of disbalance, but actually, yeah, exactly what also Aida said, like you can do everything. There is no like kind of, yeah, you cannot be, you know, mom and entrepreneur and, you know, family person at the same time. So I would just focus definitely on the positives, but I think what would help is exactly just, you know, one by one, if each of us could bring one more person, one more female by showing the example, that's already, I think, perfect. You know? So.
Yeah. Thank you. And also talking about this, because the more we talk about this, the less, you know, the better it becomes in the future, because otherwise, if, you know, the change has happened because people were talking about this. Yeah, any comments, please? Oh, okay. No worries.
Sorry. Yeah, this gender thing, I think it's a lot also in our heads. And we had this event organized by I think some female founders club in Lithuania, and they were citing those researchers showing that the number of female founders is a lot smaller, but then the ROI is pretty big because those females are more dedicated, they said, or something like that. There are some arguments in that field, but at the end of the day, if you focus on a gender instead of the actual growth and like purpose, then I think it's also it could be a stopper for you and one of the arguments why not to proceed, because it's so less likely to do so. And it's not only about having kids. It's also about like pushing it forward, because at the end of the day, especially at the very beginning, you have to push it forward all the way. Of course, you are picking up opportunities, but it doesn't grow on trees. You still have to seek for those opportunities and grab them when you see them and have this energy over and over again. So yeah, I'm very amazed about you, Aida, having this young kid and also a startup. And I know another female founder in Estonia who has the age of her kid is exactly the same as her successful startup. So usually when she goes on stage, she drags the kid together, saying that these are my two babies and they are the same age. So these examples are also changing the way we see potential in female founders. And also in my team, I'm happy to say that I have a young dad who is one of the shareholders in our team. And he just recently became a dad for the second time. And his baby is also attending some of the meetings. But he's able to also think and at the same time be a dad and then relax with kids instead of running the startup inside his head all the way. I think sometimes it could be even beneficial if we think about parenthood as a stopper, but it's not gender related. So
exactly.
Sorry.
No, thank you. That's exactly true. And I think that the whole reason, especially Eliza, I want to hear from you next, but, especially in technology, when I was young, I wanted to go into computer science, but then, my background and where I'm coming from, people were saying, oh, but you're a girl, you shouldn't do this. So, those kind of things, we need to get rid of those so that they're not preventing us from doing anything we want. But Eliza, you're coming next.
Yeah, I mean, this is the pain and this is the passion that I'm actually out to solve. And I'm not talking about it necessarily strictly from fundraising, but fundraising is actually very much at the core at everything that I'm trying to do business-wise. The entertainment industry is notoriously hard and it's notoriously difficult for women. And this is a business reason. You're talking about millions, like tens of millions to create a movie, a TV series of investment from somebody, an entity, a network, a partnership, actual investors. They're looking at track record and they're looking at whatever is going to make sure that they get return on their investment. They do not want to take the hit. Now, the Hollywood formula is you get the best directors, the best writers, and the best producers, the best actors, and you bet on them. Who are they? They are majority men. How do you enter into that field when that level is so high, when that cash flow that you need to even get started is millions, And that's what I'm looking at. That's like a huge nut to crack. And I think that there's a huge issue to be solved there. And that's why I'm looking at mobile game industry, because we're looking about smaller investments. We're looking at, validating ideas really quickly. We get data in which we can, so the data that proves, like you were talking, Ieva, about, finding, actually the proof is in the pudding. But if you can't even start getting the data, if you're already excluded because the mill has been going and the heaviness of the machinery is too big, that they will exclude you from that, So to me, this is a really, 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 really big issue. It can be solved with representation. It can be solved with us really working on it. We really, I can say that I started looking at fundraising and talking to investors already in 2016. That was pre-Me Too. The conversation, the vibe was so different from me walking into the room now. I would avoid taking my co-founder husband with me, because if I took him into the room, they would talk to him and not to me, and I've had these experiences. And I can also say that I had my first baby when I started Studio Killers. I was pregnant. I ended up in the hospital from stress with early labor pains, because I was so stressed about dropping the ball as a young mother, having a really big, amazing project on my hands. I was told to be on bed rest, which was impossible to do. There are some realities about being pregnant and being a parent and the stresses of this. And entrepreneurship is a hugely mentally taxing thing. Don't normalize it being as easy as it is for everybody else, because that's not okay. Normalize dads, definitely. Normalize dads doing that work. Normalize dads bringing their kids in and doing the workload as parents. That's fantastic. Normalize being a parent and doing these things for sure. I had my second kid right before the Kickstarter. So I have a 3-year-old now, and she's grown with me through all of this entrepreneurship. And I was so afraid of telling people I was pregnant at an event that I just pretended I had to be on a very specific diet when I was like very early pregnant, because I was in a room with like these power dudes in entertainment. And I just didn't want them to hold that against me if we were talking about going into a production that was going to be, 3 or 4 years. Oh, you're going to be a mom. You're not going to be able to maybe run the production. Like, what if that happens? So I just, I found ways of like trying to ignore those things. So these are realities that are awkward and weird, and I've been through them, and I hope that we are tackling them all together. And having these discussions since the Me Too has definitely helped. So let's discuss more.
Yeah,
but I think, don't you think also that it's about that we don't discuss life happens as a comment? I mean, you can divorce, you can have death in your family,
Absolutely.
you can have all these different things, and all of a sudden then it's more normal than actually to be pregnant, coming into a room with a large belly, and you go like, whoa, wait a minute, you're supposed to work on this, you're not supposed to have that work. But life always happens in everyone's life. So it's more like, how can we put the conversation from being a parent or being a mother, I would say, or, I think it's a complicated thing. I usually said, and I said this to you, Alexandra, too, when we were talking, I don't invest in female founders. I'm actually investing in innovation. So, but I have some really, really talented researchers that are women, of course, or some of them are also men that are in a very long relationship with their baby, the research that they're doing. So it's a similar thing to how can you move that over into, and I think the females are way better in letting that go and seeing their company growing than actually the guys are. So it's a two-edged sword. This is an instance of 4 people, but it's 2 men and 2 women. So I see it. For me, it's a pattern.
I wanted to mention something else. I'm sorry. It's also like Anette said, I mean, just like normalizing these conversations, like having to work from home. And I, when I was pitching, sometimes I had my newborn in the background and you'd hear like a scream, and I would just completely treat it as normal, It's life, it happens, you can have kids sometimes running in the background for those who have older children. So the more we normalize these conversations, all different aspects, not just having kids, but like dealing with life's other personal issues, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, and then we're impacted by those one way or the other. It's not just business, but business can go on without life. And this is the essence of life. So the more we normalize talking about these things and making them a part of our journey, then the better it is for all the new entrepreneurs coming into this space. So
yeah, I completely agree. And it's a trend now, I think, everywhere, that previously was, this entrepreneur is such a star superhero, nobody could be like them. But people don't relate to that anymore. In everything, you have to be, people relate to people. And we need to realize that everyone is a person, not just somebody is a superstar and somebody could not be that. But Hanna, maybe final comment from you before we open the floor for question and answers. And I also saw that Anette was already replying to some of the questions. So thank you for doing that.
Questions, I like them.
But yeah, Hanna, please.
This is my favorite subject, but I think, first of all, I think it's amazing that there were so many mothers here. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an investor. I do actually like several different jobs. I'm also a single mother. So, I tackle all this. And I think it's really important what Eliza said, that in a way you have to also normalize, or everyone has been saying that it's normal that life happens. Sometimes my kid is sick and I have to postpone a meeting, or sometimes he's been around, like sometimes when we have the Nordic startup, whatever, like more casual mentor meetings, he might be in the background, and it's just life. And that also makes me the person I am, because I'm also a mother. So that's how I always introduce many times myself. And I think when it comes to this whole female issue now, instead of like doing the blaming game or whatever, and I think for the guys, many times it's a traditional, it's more structural. I don't think many men are consciously maybe like choosing, it becomes maybe a pack thing when they're together somewhere. But that's the way, because people move to the direction where they're comfortable. So they've been in their man pack and, they've done the things. So it's kind of new to them as well. So I think education is one thing, and then lowering the barriers for girls and women. And by speaking up that, you can have your baby in the background and you can have a toddler, and giving birth is quite a job itself already. And giving birth to a startup as well, or any kind of entrepreneurship. And then I think it's really important to take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, life happens and we're human beings. So on the investor point of view, I'd rather invest in a human being that has a life than than the robots will anyway take over the world one day, maybe, we don't know. But That's,
but I think, don't you also think that
in
it's
us.
around society, that society also helps you? I mean, we have really nice regulatory things in Sweden where you actually are paid to be home with your kids, but you can't just do it on one person. It's not only the guy who can be home. It's not only the girl that can be home. You have to do it in a mutual package. So, and I see that more and more. I mean, we've been in Sweden now for 10 years, but if you have an American come here, they go like, oh, there's so many guys that are nannies, but it's like, no, it's the dad taking care of their freaking kid. So it's like,
I mean, I think our Nordic countries are great leaders in this, because I mean, I think in Finland we might even be a step in front of you with the whole dad leave thing and having dads at home, and so it's and that's what it's all about. Because in the end of the day, there was someone who said in the very beginning of this webinar that it's like, or maybe I read it somewhere else, but it's like, it's not really about if it's a female founded or male founded startup, or are you a female or male investor. It's about who you are as a person, really, and then whatever. So I think that's something, and then just educating, and if there's young girls listening to this webinar, I mean, I really urge you to be brave enough to contact any of us to ask questions, or to contact any accelerator and even just ask questions and get in touch. I mean, I'll always be happy to help.
Yes, thank you. And related to questions, we're actually entering now because we don't have a lot of time left, but now is the time that the audience could continue asking questions. And maybe Enrique, if you could facilitate this before we move to the closing words.
Okay. Well, thanks of all, everybody, for the conversation that I've been listening here so far. Really great insights. And second of all, thank you, Anette, because you have been taking care of every single question that has been here in this chat. There are some other questions.
Easy. I was listening to other people. I like to do
great.
Things at the same time.
I'm just going to say these questions again if somebody else wants to say something about it. So the first one was, how can you translate a good relationship into a governance structure?
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe I can add, I saw also Annette's answer. I think it's pretty straightforward, like shareholders agreement, it's a must. And it's really an important document because I think when it's neutral, then no one really cares to go into the detail. But when it's really bad or really good, then everyone definitely, like, there might be very different outcomes. So shareholders agreement is a must. But on the other hand, I would also look into how, let's say, after you have that, how not to make things too institutionalized, right? So for example, if you have a board meeting, don't call it only for agreeing on confirming some certain things, but definitely leverage all those, let's say board meetings for like a light conversation with your investors, for some brainstorming. So this is how I would kind of also try to look at it. You cannot only just base your relationship on the shareholders agreement and that's it. So it has to also be like very human inside of that, and you have to understand the agreement in human terms as well. So.
The term was governance. That's a very stiff term. Then you actually get a stiff answer, but yes. Advisory. I mean, if you have an advisory group instead of relying on a board, I think you would get more information out of that, and then hold the regulatory meetings as board meetings. The board, we are talking about it all the time, that the board is supposed to help you out into the future, be the strategist, be helping you. How many boards do you actually know that are doing this? I mean, it's complicated because it's also reporting from the past, and there's a lot of other stuff to do, but yeah.
Okay. There were a couple of questions before the event that were asked. So these, nobody has answered them yet. So let's see who wants to take them. First one, I'm worried about sharing confidential information. How much information should we share, and when should I provide customer reference when related to investments and venture capital?
I can go as well, but maybe also since I think in the earlier stage, so of course we don't really like when the confidentiality comes into place kind of for if someone steals my idea, so everyone knows that no one is stealing ideas. If I can do any of these startups that the founders here are doing, I would be extremely proud of myself. I know that I will not copy that, right? So it's about execution. But as long as it comes to the agreements, what we say is that if you have confidentiality agreements with any of your clients, then for sure we are good to go and sign it. But on the other hand, I think it's more of a kind of understanding that if you share something, we keep it only to ourselves without signing all those agreements. So preferably we don't even sign it, but if you say like, yeah, there is this reason because we have confidentiality agreements with our customers, then yeah, we're good to go, and that's absolutely fine.
I agree. I have no other further things to say. I don't know, Hanna, if you have anything to add, but it's like we couldn't be in this business if we were yapping about other people's ideas. It wouldn't work.
No, I think it's a confidential, like you have to have that. It's a bit like we talked in the beginning, like you have to build that trust in a way. And then of course, if that's, but it's yeah, you have to think about how you're going to present that as well, how it's going to sound, because so it doesn't come across the wrong way.
I just wanted to, I wanted to mention that I actually, at least in entertainment business, obviously this is a big deal, and it actually has regional differences. So in the US, if you're talking about anything of your ideas, if you're in entertainment or games, there are, it's completely normal to have an NDA in place. It's completely okay to ask. I agree with everybody else. I don't think many people can copy what you do, because I think it's always the execution. So I don't particularly worry about it. But I do know that if you're going to go into like making big deals in the US, sometimes they want to see all of the paperwork, the paper trail, your NDAs, your contracts, and make sure that you've got everything, that nobody's going to come and sue them about anything. That's one of the things that, litigation is an issue. So it really depends also in which industry you're in, and in which region you're talking to. And so I think you can, in the US, you can maybe ask tentatively about these things a little bit more. In Europe, I think it's generally more lax.
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks. There is one currently that Anette is already answering, but if somebody else wants to jump in, should I come up with the valuation of my company, or should I ask investors?
We would, just real quick. I think for sure, when we are investing, or let's say helping also founders to fundraise in the later stage, for sure, what we advise is not to come up with a notion as this is our evaluation. If you want to invest, this is the amount we're looking for. But for sure, you have to have it in the back of your mind. So ideally, you build a relationship and you understand if the fund likes it or not, and actually believes in it, and then you come to the question to valuation. And I think also that's important for you as a founder. If the fund immediately starts asking, what are you looking for? What are the terms? So they're they are not looking into the business behind, but actually kind of like the actual Excel, and just like does it make sense to have a return or not? And I would like to say, I like to say that it's better to have 1% in a super good company than 20% in a so-so company. But yes, to answer short, you need to have that at the back of your mind, and then at the end it's a negotiation.
Okay, thanks. Let's go one more question before we end, because we have way too many here. How long does it take to raise a round?
I could be snarky here and say, how long is a string? It's like, it depends on the company. It depends on the amount you're looking for, and who you have, what achievements and milestones that you have, customers that you have within you. How early are you? It's like an impossible question to answer. Maybe around between 3 and 6 months, I would say normally it takes, because it takes some time to start rally up the people and then make sure that you're validating. You don't have much more time than that to invest in it. But Eliza probably has long stories that for years we do. Well, I mean, I love investing in bridges, which for me is not a down round, because someone has evaluated themselves too high for a little bit and I can come in at the lower point. for me, it's like day trading or trading in the end. If it's like, how can I participate and where does it make sense? So all of the stuff that we're saying today doesn't make sense for other people. Might make a lot of sense to some, but not to everyone. So it depends on what you are and what type of venture you have. If you're fundraising for life science, it's like, whew, good luck. It's complicated.
All right. No more questions then, or we don't have the time to answer all of them. So
I don't know if I said something. Can I add something more? I'm sorry.
Please do.
You guys all the time. I want you, when you are developing something, please do it together with the customer. Verify it together with someone who would actually pay for the stuff and have them pay for it too. Not just give me a freebie for a trial or a pilot or a POC or whatever you call it. Make sure that they actually pay for it so you know that they have a price point where they can actually do something with it. Because you can give away everything for free and people will take it from you. But it actually is when you're solving a real problem and someone addresses it and they're paying for it to be solved, there's beautiful business around that. So don't hesitate to charge for the stuff that you're doing. Otherwise, find another customer.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you, Annette, for bringing that up again. And I see that there are some more questions, but I guess, Enrique, it's possible to also answer them during the event or then after the event if they're sent to Nordic Startup School, right?
That's right. After the event, if you want, and if it's okay with all of you, you can connect on LinkedIn or reach out, and then hopefully everybody's open to answering further questions.
I don't know if you have it on my LinkedIn. I have Wham. Do you have that on your LinkedIn? The lime colored dot when you can do live videos. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, I had it yesterday. I tried it first time.
It's super quick. It's like you can say boom, then you're done, and you feel like you.
Okay, perfect. So then we're gonna do that. So thank you once again for this amazing discussion. A lot of points that were very, very useful. But then I just wanted to end it on a maybe uplifting note, because we talked a lot about financial details, what needs to be done, how to build a relationship. But what is and now I asked you before for like 1 minute, but I'm going to try to ask you one maybe shorter but sweet. What is the thing that keeps you going? What is the thing that moves you forward on whatever you're doing, and what is something that you're waking up every day and thinking, okay, this is why I'm here, this is why I'm doing this. So if I'm going to start with Eliza, if you could share this.
Oh, wow. I have a fan base, around the studio killers already. I know I have saved lives with the creativity that I've put out there, and I have made people feel great about themselves. I know I tend to try to make joy with everything that I'm putting out there in the world. And I know that the people who are working with me, who are a diverse and amazing team, are having the time of their lives working on this project with us. And I am certain we are doing good and changing things for the better. So it definitely keeps me going, that. And I have to say, when you said that is it kind of like a game for you, Eliza? Sometimes I get excited just about the process of being a CEO and seeing what I can do. And it's exciting to see, to challenge yourself, in this arena. Absolutely. So those are the things, personal and outside.
Thank you so much. That's very inspiring. Ieva, please, if you could share next.
I think I already mentioned before, but it's never enough, I guess, to remind myself, is the customer feedback, and really seeing that you're solving the issue you're interested in. And it's anonymous feedback. It can't be lied. It's true that you're actually solving stuff in a way that it helps others, and they're recurring. So I think for me, it's saying that you are solving the issue you're interested in, and there are people who are agreeing with your solution.
Yeah, thank you. Aida?
I echo what Eliza said a bit. It's challenging yourself and realizing your full potential and what you're capable of doing and achieving. And from a business perspective, also solving a problem whose pain points I've experienced in my life. And then in terms of our target customer group, every time we talk to them, they're like, yes, I know, I get it. Thank God someone's doing this. So it really is a good validation, but also it really pushes you to go further. And then even in the hardest of days when you're completely exhausted.
Thank you. And now from the investors, Anette, what is the thing that keeps you going on the journey?
I get energy of being with people like you guys. I get energy out of giving energy. That's my thing. And I have a group of investors around me through now with Cross Nordic Capital. It's about 60 people that I've been helping out and letting them know and understand how they can validate and how they can also invest for the future as well. And then I'm thinking I'm planting seed everywhere I go and telling what I think is important, which I think obviously you guys need to know too. But it's more of like, how can we work together, making, you know, a better commitment to stay on earth and provide with innovation and actually move ourselves forward. And then also quit stupid habits that we're doing and using the environment the way that we shouldn't do, and stop doing dumb things. You know, take care of you guys, take care of yourself, trying to help people like Eliza. It's my freaking game. But it's not, it's like my mission in life is to build larger groups and for them to understand how the potential of what you can actually do for the future. I mean, invested over 50 companies. And more of them are actually going somewhere, even though they're not, might not be unicorns, all of them. But it's adding, you know, fun and life into stuff that I believe in. I mean, when we started We Don't Have Time, which is a platform for global action and it's a social media platform, I thought that was the best thing that we could ever do. We reached 247 million people about climate action. Can there be anything less good than that? So that's what keeps me up. And the opportunity that I can, you know, I can go on and on forever, but thank you for having me and asking the question.
Thank you. That's very inspiring. Jone, please share yours.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if it will sound like cliche or not, but this is absolutely true. It's the founders for sure. I love when they challenge me, and they're always, I would say, the smarter people in the room. So for me, this is what's really like I've been learning every day, and this is what's so different from any other work, right? And this is what definitely keeps me going. You know that you will come to work, which I cannot even call work, you know, and then you will actually hear all those ideas, and you have very super smart discussions. Absolutely worth every single day in my life. So
yeah, I completely agree. And Hanna, last but not least.
I think Anette is my new idol. I think I align a lot with what Anette says. I think it's also like kind of turned out to be a mission to hope to find your tribe and your people that can bring something better. I mean, I'm inspired by inspiring other people. So if I'm a small part of someone's journey in some way, and yes, sometimes it is money when you invest, but also in other, that's why I do coaching as well. And just kind of, see people evolve, because when you're a founder or entrepreneur, it's a journey within yourself as well, and you grow as well. And I think it's beautiful to see people evolve and grow, and that, like, I get the chills. So that's really, I get inspired, and having 2 hours with women like this, it's like, this is what I want more of. And I think this is what the world needs more of as well. So I think we have hope.
Yes, that's very true. Thank you so much for your inspiring words and also the conversations that we've had. Unfortunately, there is more. I would spend the day like this, but unfortunately, we have a time limit still, and we still have work to do. But thanks again, and thank you, Enrique, and NSS also for having this panel and making it happen. And I'll give the stage to you back.
Well, thank you, everybody, for, you managed to talk for 2 hours with barely drinking any water. So congrats on that. I had to drink 2 big glasses of water, and I wasn't even talking. So well, congrats, everybody. Great talk. First of all, to the panelists, great. And last but not least, Alexandra, for moderating this event. I think you managed it great. And I think we're all good to go and drink water or take a rest of the screen, hopefully. Again, if you're viewing us, please don't hesitate to connect with us on LinkedIn or any other media. And if you have any questions, please just reach out, because that's how amazing conversations happen. Eliza?
I want to mention just one last thing, because I know we're all showing and we're having a great conversation, all very positive, but it is hard to fundraise. You can have crippling self-doubt. You can be at the rock bottom. We've all been there. There are moments you're in tears. There are fights. There are gruesome things along this road. So don't assume that we're sitting here not having felt any of those things. And they're all okay and they're all normal, but you can still do it. You'll get through it. And we're here for you. So do please reach out to me if you need to, or anyone else, I'm sure.
I agree.
All right. But let's take a good rest, and thank you everybody for joining, and let's hope we hear from you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.